Gibson.
Well, the Pasquayaki Health Department has reported that as of last Friday, April 3rd, that they had two positive tests. So two people had tested positive, but they also had 45 negative test results. Unfortunately, those two people who did test positive have died of complications due to COVID-19. The Thon Nation is playing it a little bit more close to the vest. They have released that there was one tribal member who tested positive, and that person lived off the nation. But then they also, a couple days later, released another release saying that somebody on the nation, somebody living on the Thon Nation, tested positive as well.
What about the casinos on the Pasquayaki or the Tohono O'odham Nation? Obviously, those are big economic driving forces for both of those communities. Do you know anything about those casinos, those operations?
Yeah, Casino del Sol and Casino of the Sun from the with the Pascayaki tribe, they are going to be reopening on April 30th. As of right now, that date might get pushed back. And with the Thanath Nation, they too have pushed back their opening date into late April. And you're seeing a lot of these casinos donating their food, their perishable items, their non-perishable items to their local communities.
Do you think that they are facing some special challenges?
Well, when it comes to casinos, particularly for the Pasquayaki tribe, the casinos are the main source of revenue. So once you cut out that money coming in, it's really hard to sustain a government and to sustain different projects that you have going on within that sovereign nation. But then over Indian country in general, over all tribal lands, you're seeing a lack of resources impacting the way that COVID-19 is spreading, whether it be a lack of fresh water. On the Navajo Nation, there is a real lack of fresh water, and people are traveling miles and driving hours to get fresh water. So if you're washing your hands more than usual, you're going to run through that water faster and you're going to have to make more trips. So you're seeing a lot of volunteers come in and bring water to more rural communities. You're also seeing an internet gap. Whereas, you're being told work from home, but if you don't have internet access, how are you supposed to do that? You're being told to do your schoolwork at home, but if you don't have internet access, again, how are you going to be keeping up in this, COVID world where we're all working online from home?
And you mentioned the Navajo Nation. I've read reports that that has been the most impacted nation here in Arizona.
As of April 7th, there were more than 400 known cases, and at that time there were 17 known deaths. Now, when the nation announced its curfew back on March 29th via Facebook Live video, the Department of Health, the Navajo Department of Health executive director said that they had the highest number of known cases throughout all tribal nations in the U.S.
And how important do you think this federal assistance programs or projects are going to be for the Native American nations? I know, we've heard about trillions of dollars being invested back into the economy throughout the country. Are the Native American nations expecting some of that money to go to their specific areas?
Yes, when I talked to the chairman of the Pasquayaki tribe, Robert Valencia, he called it a godsend. He was very excited to be getting some money from the CARES Act. All over Indian country, you're seeing $8 billion go to tribal governments, and then an additional $2 billion go to emergency supplemental funding for federal Indian programs.
Emma, you've spoken to some of the leaders or representatives from these nations here in Arizona. Do they feel that they're getting enough support from the federal government, from the state of Arizona, their local governments?
Well, right now, none of those federal dollars have trickled down yet. And one thing that I know the Navajo Nation president, Jonathan Nez, one thing he said was that out of sight, out of mind. So that's one reason he is continuing to talk to media, is because he really wants people to remember the crisis on the Navajo Nation. And he doesn't want there to be, he doesn't want a lot of his people to die or be infected.
Okay, Emma Gibson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.